Radio.com.
Indiana in the Morning, presented by First Commonwealth Bank. Time to be first, member FDIC at 746. And it is time for our regular segment with Bob Pollock, our interview presented by Marcus & Mack, voted best law firm, best personal injury lawyer 3 years in a row in the Best of Indiana County contest. Visit them online at marcusandmack.com. Bob, good morning. How you doing?
Good morning. Good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. We'll see how we do. By the way, if you have a question for Bob on plants, anything like that, gardening, give us a call, 724-479-1160, 724-349-WCCS. I'll ask you this. Did you get a chance to go out to Maymart at all, Bob, and take a look at the plants that they had on display and up for sale?
No, I did not get to do that.
I did.
Yes.
It was very, very good. Very beautiful out there with some of the small plants that they had in the orphan section and on some of the other things that were up for sale as part of Maymart. So Indiana Garden Club does have, should get a little bit of a note there as we talk about gardening today. But with that, I guess it just means that now's the time. Is that right? Now's the time to start planting.
Yes. We've had some opportunities earlier on, not very many of them. We're above normal on precipitation, that's for sure.
Yeah, that was one thing that did concern me. I mean, a lot of the areas, maybe they haven't started planting because it's kind of still muddy and still messy.
We've had some opportunities along the way, not very big opportunities, but things that needed to get in the ground. You know, you could have gotten some of those done in between all the rain. And it's hard to get everything in, when everything gets crunched down to, we're almost June.
Yeah.
So you start to think about that really, from a vegetable production perspective, all those spring crops, the cool season crops, we'd like to start, harvesting some of those, at this point, let alone, if you didn't get your garden worked or you weren't able to use those opportunities to get plants in along the way, we've almost missed the window for a lot of those. Mm-hmm. Now, the good thing is that if you missed it now, you'll still have an opportunity, summer going into fall. Now, the difference there is that, a lot of the folks produce plants and transplants that you can buy in the spring, but they don't do that for those fall crops. So you need to think ahead about that and get seeds and start your own seeds or plant seeds directly to get that fall planting of those cool season crops.
Okay, so maybe some indoor work there with pots and
and it could be indoor. It could also, you could get them started indoors and then move them out, transition them. A lot of times we need to, we call it hardening off, or prep those plants to be outside. When they've been inside for too long, then they can get shocked. They can get transplant shock, or they could just get shocked from moving them out into an environment that's a lot different than where they've been, especially if light levels aren't as high as they should be. And then if you're in a protected structure, whether it's your house or your basement or in a greenhouse or a little hothouse, it still can be protected from the wind, and so when we put plants outside, then they're fully exposed to sunlight, wind, all the weather.
All right.
And so they need to be, a lot of times you'll grow those transplants, and then you might wean them off. You might not water them as often, just to stress them a little bit and get them prepared to make that transition into the ground.
So inside work may not be the best way to start, but because it sounds like there's more challenges once the plant gets outside, and more things you have to do to kind of prep it before it goes out. All right, so
we do that in the spring too.
All right,
especially if when they've been indoors or in a greenhouse, we usually try to transition them one step outside where they're a little bit protected, but they get exposed, and then we do that final step of getting them actually planted in the garden or the field.
So thinking from inside to maybe like the back porch to then the garden itself.
Yeah.
All right. So some things people need to keep in mind. So again, you mentioned the fact that we definitely are above normal levels for precipitation, and more rain is expected. Is this going to be probably one of the wetter summers, do you think, or is this going to be Is this going to be on par?
Just
I know that's kind of it's projecting, but
I think there's people that make their careers of this
yes,
sort of
I
stuff,
know.
isn't there?
Yeah,
or attempt to.
But
around here though, I was looking at least for June what they were predicting, and we have an equal chance. Either way, equal chance of being cooler, equal chance of being warmer. Same thing with wetter, drier. So we're sitting right in the middle, and it can go either way. I guess that's good for the people that predict these things because they can be right either way. Either way it goes. But we have to work and live with what we get. So
go ahead.
Yeah, so it's been wet up till now, but there's absolutely no guarantee. And if you look even farther east, we're above normal on precipitation. But if you look at some of the counties east of us that were in a much more severe drought last year, they're even still deficit at this point this year. So it just really varies, even within a day's drive of where we are. So you still have to make the best of it. Get things in when you can. That's kind of the biggest thing. If you wait and wait, you might never make it happen. Yeah. So you kind of got to just bite the bullet and do it.
One thing people I think would be concerned about, though, obviously as we continue on into the months, bugs and unwanted visitors, we'll say. What are some things that you're hearing about maybe in the winds as far as maybe some bugs that we don't want to see around the gardens this year? Well,
we've already had aphids are one, and that's something to even look at on plants you've purchased, flowers, shrubs, whatever, anything you've brought in. Keep an eye on it. Look at it. It's not as simple as getting it, planting it, and then walking away. Sometimes, occasionally,
sometimes you're lucky.
You can do that, but other times.
But this is
you can do that. But things to look for on plants, especially flowers, because some of the flowers can be just magnets for insects, especially like aphids, spider mites. Neither one of those insects are very large. You kind of got to look to see that they're there. Aphids, a lot of times, as well as mites, are on the undersides of the leaves. A lot of flowers have very small leaves, and oftentimes we don't notice that there's anything wrong until the plant just doesn't look like either the leaves are drooping a little bit or the color is off. The color is fading. At first you might look at it and think, oh, boy, that thing needs watered. And then you look closer, and you might even, with spider mites, you might start to see webbing on the leaves. But you'll definitely see that if the leaves are green, they're not going to be green anymore. That green's going to fade, and then you'll get some yellowing, and then you'll get browning, and then the leaves will dry out. That's because those insects feed on the plant sap, suck that out, and then the plant's not able to replace that as quickly as what those bugs do it. So just check things weekly, and in both cases, those insects, aphids and mites, have multiple generations a year. Multiple. 10, 11, 12 generations are possible in a growing season.
Ooh.
So you can treat them and think you got it under control, but if you leave one or two, they can quickly multiply and be back again. So you've got to be on top of things and pay attention to that. Whereas, there's a number of other insects that might only have one generation a year. Those are much easier to deal with. A lot of the caterpillar, the worms, and things like that. If you're growing any kind of cole crops, whether it be broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale, there's a number of worms or caterpillars that will attack those plants, and they're leaf feeders, so they chew on the leaves. So we have a visual. If we're observing and scouting.
If you're looking for it, you just look for holes in the leaves.
Yeah. They'll either be, just chewed out. They might be an actual hole. Flea beetles are another one that's not a worm, but it's a black beetle, and they're active now as well. A lot of these worms are already active on these cool season crops. especially those brassica crops. But the flea beetles, they'll actually just kind of chew off the top layer of the leaf, and sometimes they'll make a hole too. Mm-hmm. And then there's things that can trick you.
So things that can maybe psych you out a little bit.
Or you don't notice them when the actual damage happened, but as the plant grows and the leaves grow, all of a sudden you have a hole where you didn't have one before. And flea beetles are one that can do that too, where they won't eat a complete hole in the leaf. They'll just eat that surface off, but it kills that spot. And then as the plant continues to grow and expand, then that area where it was fed dries up, and it actually kind of gets torn out as the plant grows, and now you have a hole, and then you're looking around for, well, what did this? They might be gone. Yeah. The damage is done.
So basically what we have to do at this time of the year, let's say this is the time to be vigilant. Taking a look out there for anything that might do some damage. But you know what? It may sound like a lot of hard work right now, but in the end, if you've got the flowers, the colors and the fragrances will be better. And if you got vegetables, you're going to have a good crop.
Right, ample moisture helps. Although sometimes it's better to have a drier season when we can control the watering. As long as we can water. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, drier season for a lot of vegetables is better than a wet season. In wet conditions, slugs are another thing. That can be very active. Slugs will eat plants, eat leaves. They do that often at night when we're not out looking for them. And or see them. We look in the daytime and we don't, wow, what chewed a hole in the plant? If we look closer, if we look at the base of the plant, slugs need moisture. They have like a film of moisture around them, and they're slippery. You try to pick one up.
Oh, yeah. No thanks. No thanks.
And hold on to it. It'll just slime.
And it'll probably squib out of your hand, too.
Oh, yeah. You probably won't be able to hold it. But one telltale sign on plants is that they'll leave a slime trail that'll dry, and in the sun it'll be shiny.
Okay, so
there's evidence that they were there.
All right. Hate to say it, Bob, but we got to wrap it up. Thanks anyway.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right, thanks. Indiana in the Morning, presented by First Commonwealth Bank.
Wood Chevrolet Plumville, where a wood deal is a good deal. Selling and servicing the Indiana, Armstrong, and Jefferson counties. Wood Chevrolet Plumville has a full service station with ASE certified technicians and a full body shop with a new bake booth for those extra special paint jobs. So take that itty-bitty drive to Wood Chevrolet Plumville and allow us to prove to you with exceptional service and sales why people say a wood deal is a good deal. Visit us online at mywoodchevrolet.com.
Planning ahead shows how much you care. And at the Leftall Funeral Home, they understand that making funeral arrangements in advance can